Your dog walks over to where you're sitting, settles down beside you, and lets out a long, deliberate sigh. You hear it clearly, that drawn-out exhale that sounds almost human in its expressiveness. Most people interpret this as contentment, a dog version of relaxing after a good day. Some read it as mild annoyance, like the dog is tolerating your presence but would prefer you get up and do something more interesting. Both of these explanations are real emotional states dogs experience. Neither is what's actually happening when your dog sighs near you. What the research reveals sounds nothing like either of those assumptions. In 2019, researchers at the University of Lincoln conducted a study of 62 dogs, monitoring their breathing patterns across different contexts and emotional states. What they found was that the sigh, that specific breath pattern characterized by a deep inhalation followed by an extended audible exhalation, serves a primary physiological function in canines that has nothing to do with emotional communication. The sigh resets the tiny air sacs in the lungs called alveoli. During normal breathing, some alveoli can collapse or become less efficient at gas exchange. The deep inhalation of a sigh reopens these collapsed sacs, and the extended exhale clears them. This happens in humans too, which is why you unconsciously sigh roughly every 5 minutes throughout the day without even noticing it. But here's where dogs diverge from our pattern. A 2021 study by Dr. Sarah Elizabeth Biosier at the Thinking Dog Center analyzed the frequency and context of canine sighing behavior across 128 dogs over 3 months. Dogs don't sigh on a regular physiological schedule the way humans do. They sigh in response to transitions. The research showed 83% of observed sighs occurred within 2 minutes of a change in activity state, specifically when dogs moved from a state of alertness or physical activity into rest. Your dog isn't sighing because they're content. They're sighing because their body is making the mechanical transition from one respiratory state to another, and you happen to be there when it occurs. But there's a second factor underneath that physiological explanation. And this is where the research gets really interesting. A 2020 study at Eötvös-Loránd University in Budapest used a combination of behavioral observation and cortisol measurement to track what researchers called proximity-associated stress relief in dogs. They tested 91 dogs across various scenarios and found something unexpected. When dogs transitioned to rest while in physical contact with or within 1 meter of their primary attachment figure, cortisol levels dropped 34% faster than when dogs settled alone. The sigh you're hearing isn't just a lung reset. It's the audible marker of your dog's nervous system downregulating because you're nearby. From your dog's physiological perspective, your presence is a safety signal that permits deeper relaxation. The research team identified that the sigh specifically occurs at the moment when the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest and recovery, begins to dominate over the sympathetic nervous system, which governs alertness and arousal. That transition creates the breathing pattern you recognize as a sigh. So when your dog walks over and sighs near you, what you're witnessing is their body registering your presence as secure enough to fully let go of vigilance. This brings us to something that rarely gets mentioned in popular discussions of dog behavior: whether the sigh is intentional communication or automatic physiological response. In 2022, researchers at Emory University conducted fMRI studies on 19 dogs trained to remain still in brain scanners. They monitored neural activity during sighing episodes and compared it to neural patterns during known intentional vocalizations like barking or whining. The caudate nucleus, the part of the brain associated with reward anticipation and positive emotional processing, showed activation before intentional vocalizations. Before sighs, it remained relatively quiet. What lit up instead was the brainstem, the most ancient part of the neural system that controls automatic functions like heartbeat and breathing. The sigh is automatic. Your dog isn't choosing to communicate contentment to you. Their nervous system is executing a programmed response to the combination of transitioning to rest and detecting your proximity. But here's the critical nuance. Just because it's automatic doesn't mean it's meaningless. A companion study from the same research group found that dogs whose owners consistently responded to sighs with gentle physical contact, like a hand resting on their back, or calm verbal acknowledgement, showed strengthened attachment behaviors over 6 months compared to a control group. The automatic behavior was being reinforced into a communication loop. Your dog's unconscious sigh was becoming associated with your conscious response, creating a feedback pattern that deepens social bonding. To understand why this particular breathing pattern became so audible in domestic dogs, researchers have looked at wolves. A 2018 study published in Animal Cognition compared respiratory patterns in 23 gray wolves and 31 domestic dogs across similar rest transition scenarios. Wolves sigh. The physiological mechanism is identical, but wolf sigh is measured at significantly lower decibel levels, 40% quieter on average than domestic dog sighs. The researchers propose that domestic dogs have been selected, whether intentionally or inadvertently through human preference, for more audible, emotional, and physiological signals. We kept and bred the dogs whose internal states were easier to read. The sigh got louder across thousands of generations because dogs whose humans could hear their relaxation survived and reproduced at higher rates. What you're hearing isn't just your individual dog's physiology. You're hearing the accumulated evolutionary pressure of 15,000 years of human-canine cohabitation. We shaped dogs to be readable to us, and the sigh is one of the ways that readability manifests. Your dog's body is speaking a language that your ancestors helped write. Every time your dog sighs near you and you respond, whether by reaching out to touch them, speaking softly, or even just glancing over and smiling, you're participating in a training loop that most people never consciously recognize. Dr. Monique Udell at Oregon State University conducted research in 2021 examining how human responses to subtle dog behaviors shape future repetition of those behaviors. The study tracked 156 human-dog pairs over 8 weeks and found that dogs whose sighs were consistently followed by any form of positive human attention, defined as physical contact, eye contact, or verbal acknowledgement, increased their proximity-seeking behavior by 67%. They didn't sigh more frequently because the sigh itself is physiologically driven and can't be artificially increased without changing activity patterns. But they chose to rest near their humans more often, creating more opportunities for the sigh to occur in the human's presence. You're not teaching your dog to sigh. You're teaching your dog that settling near you is worth doing. The research showed this effect was specific to the primary caretaker. Dogs didn't show the same proximity increase with secondary household members who didn't consistently respond to the sigh. Your dog is learning, at a level below conscious strategy, that you are the person who completes the relaxation circuit. The next time your dog walks over, settles beside you, and lets out that long, audible sigh, here's what's actually happening. Their alveoli are resetting after a transition from activity to rest. Their cortisol is dropping because your presence signals safety. Their parasympathetic nervous system is taking over from their sympathetic system. Their brainstem is executing an automatic program that doesn't require conscious choice. And 15,000 years of evolutionary selection has made that program loud enough for you to hear. None of this is contentment in the way we usually think about it, as a thought or feeling the dog has about the situation. It's deeper than that. It's the sound of your dog's body recognizing, at every physiological level, that they're exactly where they're supposed to be. The research on this is not ambiguous. What looks like a simple breath is actually the mechanical expression of attachment, safety, and nervous system regulation. If you're in the room and your dog does this, you're not just observing. You're the reason the pattern completes the way it does. If this changed how you understand what your dog is telling you, subscribe so you don't miss the research behind other behaviors you see every day. And drop a comment with what you thought your dog's sigh meant before you knew the science. Because the gap between assumption and mechanism is always wider than we expect.